I'll get live broadcast on YouTube, and this is a subcommittee selected by the city council, so we're under the same public meeting laws that the city council or planning commission and any other committees are, so. I probably should disclose that to you before you sign up for the committee. My bad, if anybody wants to leave now. And we always say we're gonna start now, but it takes just a couple of minutes to go through all the loops to get on YouTube and then the recording. I got 2 thumbs up, so we're ready to go. You want to welcome everybody?
I do. I also want to thank you all for being here, participating, and helping out, talking with the city about economic development and affordable housing. These are really important topics, not only for the city, but for myself, and I'm assuming for all of you as well. So they're also very important. And I would like to just do a quick round of introductions, go around the room if that's okay with everyone. I'm Mayor Chaz Jones, and I came to Philomath in 2015, and I work for the Affiliated Tribes Northwest Indians. I'm the Climate Resilience Program Director for 2 more weeks. And then I'm also starting a business as a consultant doing tribal climate change and energy development work. But a little bit about myself.
I'm Spencer Irwin. I moved to Philomath, I think I want to say 2013 or 14. I own a company called Allpro. Suggest also some other construction stuff, student housing, a lot of cleaning, maintenance of student housing properties, and plugs. I own the Sweet Space, which is actually in Corvallis. Sorry, there wasn't a good space for it here. It's a cooperative business center out at Eastgate Center, kind of out by auto and paint. And then I have a small business consulting company called 13 Points Consulting. One of my friends. I had nothing when I started in business and would like to kind of help other people get over that hump. So we started doing that as well. So that's me, and I'm super busy. We're Pritchard. My wife and I have been here in Philomath for years. I'm retired. I was the laboratory manager for Samaritan on the coast in both hospitals there, and then in Lebanon for a little bit. Retired from that. We had to move here from the coast. My wife has health issues, so her doctors are here. So the mountains was a little much during the winter. I just like to get involved with places where I lived. I've done that before. I'm living here, so just getting involved.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Alba. Let's see, I've raised 3 kids here in Philomath, and live just outside of town off of Decker Road there. Got a little dairy goat farm situation out there. And I am a commercial and residential property owner, and my property here in Philomath is the Dizzy Hen building.
Thank you.
I'm Whitney Smart. I was born and raised in Philomath, and moved away for a bit, and then me and my husband, once we started a family, we moved back. So yeah, we have kids in the middle school, and then we both own businesses in Philomath. So yeah, we kind of like what he was mentioning. We just like to be involved in Philomath, like whatever's going on with Philomath. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Whitney.
My name is Ron Derrick. My wife and I moved from Corvallis in 2017 to Florida, and I'm a civil geotechnical engineer. We have a small office here in Philomath, and then our main house is in Springfield.
Excellent, thank you.
I'm Carly Johansson. I moved to Philomath a couple of years ago. I'm originally from the Midwest. My fiance and I own a home just off in Beck Hill. Same thing, just really looking to get involved in the community. My hometown's about the size of Philomath, so kind of a special place in my heart for towns this size, and just looking forward to making a difference.
Hi, I'm Nancy Murphy. I've got about 30 years experience in public sector planning and land use, transportation, and natural hazards. I retired 7 years ago, came here to live next door to my son, having his own light industrial that hopefully will shift to just a mixed-use building sometime soon. And I just got hired to work half-time for ODOT again, work remotely. So the office I was thinking about renting out is now my office. So, and I've been here almost 6 years, and in the sort of post-drama period that we're in now, realized that my brain was atrophying and I needed to get involved and wake up my brain again. So I'm happy to be here.
Are you charging yourself for the rent space?
I don't think I have to keep.
My name is Christopher McMorran. I'm a city councilor here, and I grew up in Philomath. I graduated from PHS in 2017, and then went away to college for a few years and came back. And I was briefly on the school board before I was on the city council. And my day job, I work in the state legislature. So I'm excited to be here with all of you. Thanks for volunteering your time.
I'm Sandy Heath. My daughter and I moved to Philomath in 2006 from the coast via Corvallis. I've been involved with the city, volunteering in different areas, and I'm currently a board member of the Philomath Community Services and garden manager over there. And I've been interested, well, since the big housing boom, I've been interested in real affordable housing in Philomath area and accessible to many people. So this was a great opportunity to do that, and I look forward to it.
And we'll hear from our guests a little bit later in the meeting today. But you guys go to introduce yourselves now, so you're not just the shadows in the back of the room.
Oh, it's more fun to be one of those silent people in the back, listening. Nobody knows where you're from. My name is Ben, and for the record, there will be a spelling test. My last name is Svetkovich. He's nodding his head. He already knows. I'm with C&W Consulting, and I'm graciously invited to present at this meeting. I live in Loveland, Colorado.
Hello, I'm freezing, sorry. My name is Sandy Wiggers. I'm the COO. In other words, I'm the mom of the team, C&W and everything else. And I keep everything out of the background, so it's okay. Thank you very much.
Do you want to say?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chelsea, Assistant City Manager here at City, and here in case Chris has to dog out for some other conflicts, scheduling conflicts this evening. Back up.
Thank you, Chelsea, for being here and saving my bacon. I'm Chris Workman. I'm the city manager. We've been here with my family about 10 years now. Time flies. Love being in Philomath, love what's going on. And I'll kind of segue into the list that's in front of you, which is a list that I put together a few months ago now and presented to the city council and said there's a lot more I'd like to do in housing, economic development. We talked of doing more. I'd like to do more. We could do a separate committee for housing and separate for economic development, which means 2 more nights away from my family every month, and that, or we can combine the two and really work hand in hand with housing and economic development, which really do go hand in hand. You can grow jobs, but if there's no place for people to live, then you're not gonna attract businesses, and vice versa. You know, if you got a bunch of housing and no place for people to work, no economic development going on, then you're just become a better community, and that's not a lot of fun either, or sustainable. So, the city council agreed. There's several things on their strategic plan, which is a 5-year plan that council looks at and reviews every year. That looks out, you know, the next year or two, and up to 4 or 5 years out on essentially priorities for the city and things that we'd like to work on and do with all of our spare time. And so these are, again, some of these things are on there already. Some of these things will gravitate onto that list as they increase in importance or decrease in importance. So while you're sitting there tonight and we're talking through things, what I'd like to do is have you do a good old-fashioned paper survey of some sorts. And I'll apologize, I meant to pass pens around. There's some pens on the table. First come in, I'll grab them and hand out. Ben, you mind? Thanks. Right next to the cookies, Ben. And not necessarily rank them, but maybe score them on a scale of 0 to 5. 0 being if you don't really have an interest in that topic at all, and that's okay. I don't anticipate all of these are going to be 5s for everybody. So if you don't have a lot of interest, to give it a 0. If it's like, yeah, some interest, give it a 3. If it's the reason you're here and you want to talk about every meeting, give it a 5. All right. We'll collect these at the end. This is going to help me gauge a little bit on how to prioritize these meetings and what to bring in front of you and projects to start moving forward. I'm going to talk through each of them just briefly, just because that's a one-liner, and I probably could talk of each one for an hour, but I'll keep it brief, kind of answer questions that you've got on the way. But that's the intent of these, is to give us a little bit of input here at this first meeting. I will say this, I was really, really pleased with the results from the request to start this new committee. I think it's a very varied group, as you all heard going around introductions. There's some business owners, some housing advocates, community leaders. There's a whole mix, which is terrific. And I think everybody's going to bring different perspectives. So just as a general rule, we like to keep things very civil. It's okay to not agree with another person. Just do so agreeably, right? It's like, oh, that's a good point. I disagree. This is how I feel about it, right? And as long as we can keep things very civil and value other people's opinions, even if they're different than yours, that's what this is about. So don't be afraid to have a counter point of view from somebody else. This is really about coming to discussions. We haven't fully established how much decision-making this body is going to have on its own. We do have 3 city council members that are members of this committee, which gives us a little bit more potential authority to make decisions on our own under the purview of the city council than say like the Park Advisory Board, which is clearly an advisory board because it advises the city council. They talk about things, they make recommendations to the city council goes with it or they don't. It's advisory, right? This group right now is kind of there because we don't really have any authority until the city council gives us authority. But as an example, we could take any one of these topics and say, we really like this, we want to run with it. I report back to the city council, say the committee's got a good handle on this, they want to run with it. Can they make some decisions here? And the council says, yep, anything within these guidelines, you're good. And then we bring it back here and we can talk, hey, what do we want to do in this area? So that's something that's a little bit unique to this committee going forward. We just haven't really established what that is we're going to have authority to do yet. So for the most part, I would say see your role as giving me and the 3 city council members that are here your opinions. What is your view on these topics? What do you see as important to you? Keep in mind your personal bias, and it's fine to have that, right? I'm a property owner in town. I'm a business owner that doesn't live in town, right? I'm raising my family in town, right? And so all of those bring with it a bias or a point of view, which is important. And so don't feel like everybody has to be in agreement and everybody has to all think the same way. And if you don't, you're wrong. We want to hear those different opinions. That's going to help us come to what's going to kind of satisfy the greatest good on each and every one of these topics. That makes sense. I don't want to sound too like kumbaya, but I do think it's important just for people to have a sense of comfort. And the goal, as I said in the email, is right now we'll probably meet every month for a few months. Eventually that will probably taper down as we've got a better feel on things. I do anticipate, depending on what we're talking about, there'll be some splinter groups that will divide off and tackle specific issues they're interested in and bring that back to the full group. So we could very well take off a month and say, okay, you gotta, instead of 4 weeks, you got 7 weeks to pull something together, make some contacts, come up with whatever and bring it back. We'll meet 8 weeks from now, right? So I don't see this as being a monthly meeting forever, but I think as we're getting our feet underneath us a little bit, I would anticipate a once a month. It's really hard to schedule like this. I'll probably send another doodle poll out, similar to what I did for this one. This one we were a little undergun. I wanted to get it soon. I didn't want to wait out another month or two. But going forward, by the end of the week, I'll send you another link to a doodle poll. And then I'm going to be looking for more of a permanent date that would likely work for you most days of the month. First Monday or second Monday of the month or whatever it might be. If you've got standing conflicts, then don't include those dates. If you've got dates that are generally pretty open during the week or that month, that's kind of what we're looking for. So we can get a set date and we're not having to the schedules around all the time. So we would like to land on like a date each month that we can meet, and then on a month that we don't need to meet, we'll just cancel it for that month. So that's what I see going forward. Housekeeping, I should have started here, sorry. There's a public restroom just down this hall. There's men's and women's. There's a little kitchenette if you just need to wash your hands or anything. You're free to get up and, use the restroom, get a drink, whatever, at any time. There's a water cooler in there as well. Or just think if you need to refill water bottles. So again, feel free at any time to get up and take care of things and then just come back and rejoin us when you can. Those facilities are there for use. What's my forgetting? I think that's it on the technical stuff. Any questions on anything I've kind of covered or not covered yet?
Missing one council you should mention.
I was going to cancel that, yeah, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say for like the public meetings stuff, if folks are new to it, that also means we can't talk as a group outside of public meetings. So it's not just the being recorded and everything, but also like we can't all meet at the Dizzy Hen and talk about housing because that would have to be a public meeting. And that includes like texts and emails and stuff.
Is that true for a body that's not a decision-making body?
It is, if you're advising a decision-making body, it still holds true, yep. So, and it would be a full quorum, so if 2 or 3 of you want to get together for coffee and talk about something, that's fine. Or milkshakes, I like milkshakes, that's fine. But you can't have a quorum, which would be half or more of you, right? So we're a committee of, should have done the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 7 of you can meet. If 8 of you are there, no talking city business, right? Talk about the kids in the uniforms, that's fine. So yeah, and so that's a pretty good group. So again, splinter groups can meet. You can talk to each other if you meet in the supermarket and you want to talk about housing and Philomath, that's great. But yeah, you don't want to have any meetings outside of these meetings. And I appreciate Councilor McMorrin pointing out meetings. If you get these chain emails where we're all meeting virtually by emailing each other all this stuff, and I think this, what do you think? I think this, what do you think? Oh, well, he said this. That's a meeting, right? So we don't do that. For the most part, you want to use staff, use me as your insulation. If you've got an idea for everybody, send it to me. Say, hey, Chris, could you forward this to everybody? I'll read through it and I'll say, hey, this is coming from so-and-so, and they can go out to everybody. And then don't reply all, reply back to me, right? So we'll be careful there, but staff can be your insulation for not having that public meeting because I'm going to put that information out in a way that's not corresponding, right? It'll just be informational, and I'll typically say, don't reply all, or I'll say just reply to staff. Let's talk about this in the next meeting. This is reading material for you going into the next meeting, so I'm typically pretty careful about how I put that out there so you won't be caught off guard. Worst case scenario, if it's an ethics violation, somebody would complain, the ethics commission will look at it and they'll say, don't do it again. Might get a $50 fine or something. I mean, it's not a big deal. It's really more about public trust. And we just want to make sure that when we're having public meetings that we're doing it in public when we're talking about things that we're talking about. So Thank you, Christopher, for pointing that out. We are missing today, Counselor Matt Lehman. He's on the city council. He wasn't able to be here today. Robert Davis wasn't gonna be able to make it. Steve Sire isn't able to make it. And I think Janelle LaJoya, said that she would not be able to make these first meeting or two, with her scheduling conflicts. So she's the manager of the Philomath Farmers Market as a side note of interest. So she's been active in the community for the last several years as well. So that's who we are. Any other questions? Did I miss anything else?
Not off the top of my head.
All right. For tonight, I do need to apologize. The Philomath dance team is having their big showcase tonight, which I learned about Monday night. And so I do have a conflict. I need to sneak out to do my official annual daddy-daughter dance with my high school graduating senior. Can't miss that one. So Chelsea's here. She's going to come inform me. And then our guests that are here, I'll let them kind of introduce as they get here. They're going to give their presentation toward the end of the meeting, probably when I'm gone. I've got about 15 minutes left. So that's the plan for tonight. I typically will be at these meetings. Just tonight was a conflict that I didn't know about. So I won't spend a lot of time on them. I want definitely make sure that you understand what's there and I can answer any questions. The first one's development of the city-owned downtown lots for mixed-use housing. Does anybody know where the two city-owned lots are? Does anybody know where one of them are? No fair city council members?
Car wash?
The old car wash, yeah, Denny's one car wash, 14th and Main. It's where all the equipment is parked right now. No, they're not paying us. Across from McDonald's, yeah, right off of Main Street. So I used to have the big building, had a plant growing up the front of it, and it fell over. And so the city bought that lot several years ago with the intent to do some type of development there. It's got some environmental contamination issues, and it was a point, if you know, it was for sale forever. Nobody wanted to buy it because there were so many unknowns about the environmental hazards that who knows how much money you'd have to dump into. So the city jumped in, purchased the property, got that building demoed and everything, and we're doing the environmental cleanup on it. There's some grants and things available to a government, so they aren't necessarily available to a private citizen. So it's a way for the city to be able to purchase it, get it cleaned up, so we're not contaminating the environment anymore, and then we get to kind of dictate what type of development goes in there. The city council's interested in some type of a mixed-use development. Our code, it's zoned commercial. Our code allows for commercial first floor and residential second and above. So when I say mixed use, that's kind of what I'm referring to is first floor has to be commercial, second floor and up above could be some type of residential development. The council's very interested in the affordable housing portion. Sandy mentioned that earlier. So we're looking at some type of a subsidized rental housing unit there. This would be government subsidized in one form or another. So I'm actively talking to a partner, potential future partner that's a developer that does that type of work. They look for grants from the state. They look for contributions from the city, such as land, in order to make their projects more affordable. And then they guarantee a lower rent, like 80% of the median household income for our area, for example. They would guarantee that rent for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, depending on which state grant they applied for and were able to get. So they're going to get their money. They just tend to get it up front, which means they can have a lower rent throughout the lifetime of the project. So we own that lot, 14th and Main. Anybody know the other lot? Jones? Remember?
It's the lot that's across the street, directly to the west of the Goodwill store, between Goodwill and Dairy Queen.
The Arc.
The Arc.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Arc.
Oh, yeah.
Goodwill.
Where the house was?
Yeah. There was an old house there that was rented for years. There was a basketball court out there. If you remember, the kids used to be able to play basketball all the time. Scared me to death. That ball was going to fly out the street. Never did. Never find it. The house got demoed. The property is zoned commercial. So the house was, we call it pre-existing non-conforming, it didn't conform to the commercial zone. So once it gets torn down, they have 6 months to rebuild the house, and if they don't rebuild the house, then it goes to commercial use. So that's a commercial zone space. Again, first floor commercial, up above can be residential. There are some new state laws that come into place for multifamily housing in commercial districts if it's government subsidized rents. So the potential partner that we're working with is looking at that law and seeing if that's compatible for that use to be all residential. The government doesn't like giving loans out for commercial enterprise type stuff when it's mixed use. They don't mind giving the money for the housing portion. They don't mind giving money for economic development. They don't seem to like doing both at the same time on the same property. Different pots of money, different purposes, and it gets hard for the state to delineate between those two. So those are the two lots, 14th in Main and 20th in Main. Which is about 14 minus 20 is 6 blocks to the east. So, and really there's no environmental contamination there. As far as I know, like I said, there was a house on there and a big yard. It's pretty flat.
Size of that lot?
A lot of there. Half an acre. That one's a half acre. And the other lot's just a little bit over half an acre at 14th and Main too. So that's that project. Any questions on that one? We're still pretty open, very early in that process. I will just say the council is chomping at the bit to do something, right? Chris, do something. We need to do something. So we need to do something.
Is there, an estimate of how many units either one of those would look at, is it too soon for that?
And I mean, there's some variables there. You can do studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, so depending on how many units.
Yeah.
I will say one of the biggest constraints that we had up until about half a year ago, was parking tended to be the limitation. We require 0.7 parking spaces for every 1 unit of housing. But the state has made a new administrative rule that says if you're on a transit line, like our bus line, then we cannot require parking, period. So the developer typically is gonna still want some parking for tenants, but it's gonna be up to the developer and how much parking they put. But it literally used to be how many units can I fit based on how much parking space I need around it. And that parking part of the equation is now gone. Now it's how many units can I fit? And maybe have an ADA spot and some bike parking and maybe a pickup delivery area, right? So one of the biggest constraints has been taken off the table. So, you know, in half an acre, you're probably talking 10 to 15 maybe would be a decent number in a half acre spot. Yeah. That was the short answer. I should have started with it. Sorry. 10 to 15.
And that, Chris, do you know that apartment building that's right next, just on the west side of that property there, is that, Section A or
Subsidized.
anything?
I don't know if they do Section 8 or not. I'm not sure if that one is or not. Yeah, I don't know. Right between the vacant property and the Dairy Queen. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay, let's go down next one. So again, 0 to 5 if you're interested in the housing, mixed use and that type of stuff. And again, I would envision this group like, hey, why don't you join us for the next meeting with the partners and ask your questions and get some insights and look into government programs that are out there. Maybe, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do, I can do, but it's stuff that you can do as well as I can do. It's just picking up the phone and talking to people. I'm on the Housing Economic Development Committee, City of Philomath. I'm interested in this program. Can you tell me more about it? We're looking for funding. We're looking for process, et cetera. So that's the kind of help that I'd be looking for on that.
Just to clarify, 5 was very interested.
5 is very interested.
Okay.
I'll talk about it every day. Yes. Development code audit to remove barriers to affordable housing development. We're currently redoing our development code. By development code, I mean the rules in place that dictate how much development you could have, how many parking spaces used to be there, the setbacks, how high a building can be, all of those things, how much landscaping you have to have, all those things that a developer has to comply with when they build a home or a building in Philomath. So this would be looking at our current development code, or looking at the changes being proposed to the development code and saying, does this increase the cost of housing or does this lower the cost of housing? and giving that a serious look, and maybe even looking at other municipalities that have done a previous audit and see what they came up with, right? Where have you found ways in your development code to lower the cost of housing in your community? So that one's pretty straightforward. Any questions on that one?
So we're not doing that in the current review.
We are already, but we would love help looking at other codes and talking with other folks from other cities. I hate reinventing the wheel. I mean, affordable housing is not a Philomath problem, right? So other cities have been grappling with this, and frankly, other cities have entire staff departments that are working on housing and development, community development, right? We don't. We've got me, so, and you now. So that's what I'm looking for, is who can make some phone calls to a couple other cities. I'm on the Philomath Housing Economic Development Committee. I'm a volunteer. I'm looking for information on what have you done with your development code to lower your housing costs to develop in your town. And you don't have to know all their language. You're like, hey, could you send information to Chris? That'd be great. Thank you. Done, right? So that's kind of help. All right, number 3. Develop a list of actions the city can take to encourage and entice low-income housing developments / developers, right? There's, not every developer does low-income housing. There's some that specialize in it. Who are they? What does it take to get them interested in Philomath, right? I said I've got a partner that I'm looking, or a potential partner that I'm talking to. I'd love to have 3, right? I've got 1, right? And that was kind of a by chance. I happened to run into a guy and say, you do what? Let's talk. And it sounds like there might be an avenue, but it's not perfect, right? And I don't know if perfect's out there, but I'd love to have a better idea, a better grasp of what it takes to get low-income developers, low-income housing developers interested in a community. Obviously, it's money, right? But what shape, what form, what does that look like for Philomath? Promote and recommend improvements to the facade grant program. This is a newer program the city's got on improving the facades, or the front, what you see on the buildings as you go through town. We've got 3 applications in right now that I'm working with to redo their whole fronts. There's some grant money that goes to help that. Not gonna cover all of it. The grants are $10,000. Most of these projects I'm looking at are $80,000 to $180,000, depending on how much they're doing. So it's not a great percentage of the project, but it's hopefully enough just to entice people. Let's do it now rather than waiting a couple more years, right? Or forever. Or it may be a simpler project, right? So it's at least a 50-50 match. So we know the property owner is going to put at least $10,000 of their own money into it. We'll match it with 10, and we'll get a $20,000 facelift on a property. Great, right? So there's some criteria. There's some timber town type elements that have been established. It's the first year we've done it. We know there's ways to improve it. So if you're interested in that type of project, you own a business in town that's had a recent facelift, what were the challenges, that might be of interest to you as well. Go just a little bit quicker because I do need to take off, but I got time to go through each. Is a little bit faster. Review time, place, manner restrictions on targeted businesses. This is primarily looking at our time, place, manner restrictions on dispensaries, marijuana dispensaries. There's also got kind of a hold right now for psilocybin. Thank you. Psilocybin. They've got good distributions. Their facilities, but we're going to need to take some action on that fairly soon. So these are, a little more progressive types of land uses that have different impacts than a typical business. They're still maybe a little bit taboo, kind of like a tattoo parlor or a salon used to be a little more taboo than what they are today. But as such, there's some different state laws that regulate them, for one, and then there's some other just what are some things that we should do as far as regulating time, place, and manner for different types of uses that are different, right? And maybe not as acceptable to others, or maybe have a different impact on the community than your typical pharmacy or convenience store, right? So that's one that's out there. That's in the strategic plan currently for the city council. They'd like to take a look at that. Recommend tourism strategy, including the scenic byway management plan. If you don't know, Highway 34 from here to Walport is a state recognized scenic byway. It's the lane, the road less traveled. Those are set up as tourism destination routes, right? They're trying to encourage RVers, travelers, tourists to take the road less taken, right? To go through. Is that hitting you? Do you want to close that?
No, I'm fine.
To take that road, there's a management plan, which is really a improvement plan, putting wayfinding points along the way, points of interest, things to make that a more enjoyable route other than just putting the signs up saying, take this route. We want to identify there's several points of interest that have been identified on the map, but they're not necessarily identified on the road. So this would be, how much money would that cost? What would it look like? Do we want to have a given look for the signs? What graphic designs do we want to use? That type of stuff to help make improvements along that scenic byway. Also in here, creation of a city logo, branding, expansion of Skirvin Park as a tourist attraction, events and event space making. There's a lot of different things in here. This is all kind of centered around this whole tourism as a component of our economic development. I in no way want to ever promote that tourism is our economic development policy. It is a component of it. It's not all of it, right? We're not going to become a tourist town like Sisters. I would hate to be empty, 9 months of the year and then have chuck full of people 3 months of the year. I don't think we want to build our economy around that, but I have no problem people passing through want to spend some money here either, right? So it's an important component that has a lot of room to grow, but it's in no means the only strategy we have.
So, the scenic byway management plan is a state level plan.
It was approved, it was written locally, but approved by the state, yeah.
Okay, who's the lead on that, county or?
The lead right now is Visit Corvallis. They're our regional tourism hub. And we've got a start meeting, did we get that scheduled yet? We're still looking. We've done some initial outreach to folks along the pathway. Christopher McMorrin is the council representative to kind of get that management committee up and going. We got the approval in 2018, but it's kind of just sat on the shelf since then. We hit COVID, we had some other stuff going on. But we're trying to resurrect that. Christopher McMorrin's taken the lead. And so we've done some outreach to Visit Corvallis and elected officials, city managers, tourism industry, lead folks, all see to try to get a first meeting set for that project specifically. So we're trying to get that management plan committee put together. Advertise on recently completed Main Street plan. Recently completed, what did I say? Advise on recently completed Main Street plan and downtown redevelopment plan implementation strategies, as well as the new policies and the comprehensive plans economy chapter. This is a big one. It's only 2.5 phrases, but we recently completed a Main Street plan, which looks at some parking provisions, look at some strategies for your downtown for redevelopment. And then following that, about a year later, we did an actual downtown redevelopment plan. We were trying to get a plan specific to our city-owned lot at 14th and Main. The state wouldn't fund a specific project site plan, but they would do an area-wide plan. So we said, great, look at our entire downtown. How do we encourage redevelopment of the downtown area? The Dizzy Hen, I think, was a great example of taking an old building that was kind of dilapidated and end of life and re-energizing it, putting new life in it. Now it's the most popular spot on mornings for breakfast, and especially Saturday mornings. You can't find a place to park downtown because the Dizzy Hen's gone. That's that type of kind of redevelopment that we're looking for. Some of those details, and there's some strategies in each of those plans laid out. The city's comprehensive plan kind of covers everything that we're doing, but there's a specific chapter on the economy, which we'll become more familiar with as a group. And there's specific strategies in there of things we want to do. Increase economic development through retention of businesses, through attracting new businesses, through tourism. There's all these different fingers of ways to help the economy to grow, which are outlined in the city's comprehensive plan. So, again, that's a big one. We'll kind of take that in bite-sized pieces, and I need to expose you to those different plans, and so we'll do that at a later time. I don't want to overwhelm you with a stack of plans. Here you go. And then lastly, recommend implementation of relevant goals and objectives identified in the 2020-2025 Comprehensive Economic Development Strategies, 5 priorities areas. So we have an economic development strategy. It was identified as part of our comprehensive plan update. It fed into our comp plan and those policies, but there's some other policies that, or there's some action steps there of implementation that we haven't done a whole lot with yet. So again, it's another pretty big plan, a lot to digest, but it's got a lot of great ideas of some smaller things we can do, some policies we can implement, some things we can try, code fixes that we can implement, that type of thing to help encourage economic development. So very much economic development driven there towards the end. Any questions on any of those? Does it help give kind of an overall picture, and do you have a better idea of maybe what this committee's going to be useful to the city to do? Have I scared anybody off? There's a lot to do. Like I said, this is stuff that just builds year after year after year. And it's like, I need help, right? We just need a focused group to really hone in on this kind of stuff. And I recognize we're not going to sit here from a year from now and go done, 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 done. These are things that are going to go on. We need some help prioritizing. So if you wouldn't mind ranking these 0 to 5, let me know. If there's things that are much more important to this group, then those are the things we're going to kind of focus on. If there's things that are important to city council that aren't important to this group, then I'm going to try to convince the group that these are important things we need to do as well. Or I report back to the city council, they're not that interested in this. We're going to focus on these areas. And if the council's interested in that, you're going to have to do it on your own, right? This group's not going to help as much. So if you can do those as we're going through, I do need to jet out here a little bit, but before I go, let me go ahead and turn the time over to Ben and Sandy. Thank you. Ben and Sandy. I won't give a lot more than that. They've got a presentation that Chelsea's going to help put on with them. This is really a listening opportunity for you, and I don't necessarily need any direct feedback at this point, but when we meet next month at some point, look for the email from me. When we meet next month, I'll ask for some of your feedback, and eventually we'd like to go to the city council with an idea. Is this something we want to pursue? Is there interest? Does it look like something that would be beneficial to the city? Or does it just seem like a decent idea that might work somewhere else, but we don't think it'd work here, and this is why, right? So just be kind of open to the idea and the concept. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thanks for being here tonight. Good to meet everybody in person, and look for an email from me later this week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
I'm gonna go dance with my daughter. You can just leave with Chelsea. Or just put them on the corner of the desk, and Chelsea get them for you at the end. Thanks, everybody. We'll let Sandy and Ben come up here so they can be seen on the camera.
Thank you, Paul, for allowing me to come and do a presentation for you. I just heard all the homework that you guys got, so I'm not entirely sure that you're going to be thinking that I'm going to give you additional homework. I'm not. One of the tasks that we have taken upon ourselves to provide to local government is a tool. We like to provide tools. Every item that you have on your list, all 5 items, regardless of the priority that you guys generate and how you choose to approach the challenges that your community faces, you need tools to be able to deal with those issues, to be able to address those issues. And one of the greatest tools, I don't know if you'll agree or not, but one of the greatest tools is money. Money is a huge hindrance for many projects, and it's a tool with which you can accomplish a lot of things, provided that you use it as the appropriate tool. Our job, our focus, what we're here to talk to you about, is providing you with that tool. Mayor, thank you for allowing Chris to invite us. And before I say anything else, I'd like one thing to be absolutely clear. We have chatted with Mr. Workman about this program, but this is an entirely new program. And while I am grateful that we're here I don't want our presence to suggest that the city has approved it or that they want to do this. I want you to know that this is the first presentation, full presentation, that the city of Philomath is hearing. And based on your feedback, whether or not this is something that the city council will consider and or approve. Mr. Mayor, I'm assuming that that involves you.
I'm involved, yes, but I'm super familiar with your.
Okay. So I'm going to dig into it a little bit. We have a slide presentation.
We're on it.
She's trying to get on it.
That's technology.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. I know how that is. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you guys, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. I would like to ask you, have you ever heard of Uber? Raise your hand if you've heard of Uber. Okay. Have you ever heard of Airbnb? Besides being profitable, what is one thing that both companies have in common? They're disruptors. But what does that mean? Let's define that for a minute, if you don't mind. Okay? Both of us can. I welcome you sharing. Okay? Has anybody ever heard of the hotel industry? How old of an industry is that?
As soon as they were cropped,
There have been hotels, inns, various different things of the sort for centuries. How do you suppose a company like Airbnb could come along and completely alter an industry that is that old, that is that well established? How did that happen? Here's something about Airbnb that I want you to know. Airbnb doesn't own any real estate. Who owns the real estate? The homeowners. Airbnb simply creates a network that allows the average individual to operate as a hotel would, using what they already have. That's a very interesting concept. It's a concept that they brought to the table and that they've made a lot of money with, and a lot of other individuals are using it successfully. Uber. Has anybody ever heard of a taxi cab? Now, I grew up in New York City. I apologize. I know about taxi cabs. But have any of you ever heard of taxi cabs? How old of an industry is that?
as old as the wheel, just about.
As old as the wheel. As a matter of fact, it's old enough that many cities actually don't call them, as far as licensing is concerned, they don't call them taxi cab companies, they call them livery companies. Because it goes back to the stagecoach, it goes back to the horse and buggy, and older than that. Who would have imagined that an industry that old could be turned on its ear? And once again, that company isn't buying shops where they're going to repair the vehicles. That company is not buying vehicles. The company doesn't even go out and necessarily get the licensing that some cities might like, or that was a problem that they used to have. What did they use?
Networking.
Networking and your personal vehicles. Interesting concepts, different concepts that have made people rethink how business is being done. So what we did is we said, well, wait a minute. Is there a way to rethink how government is being funded? Allow me to rephrase. Is there a way to rethink taxation? What do you think? There are two things that are certain in life, right? Death and what? Okay? Is there a way to rethink taxation?
Not the hot button in Oregon.
Yeah. I hate to disappoint you, but it's a hot button everywhere. Okay? The reason that it's a hot button is because as you're going to see, as you're looking through these challenges that you're facing as a committee, Everything costs money and nothing is getting cheaper. Okay? The challenge isn't whether or not you are able to access the money. I'm sorry, take care of the project. The challenge is how are you able to access the money? That is the challenge. Right now, that is done how? In most cases, it is done with taxes, various different taxes. We won't get into what all they are. It's done with fees, it's done with fines, it's done with borrowing money through bonds, and it's done with grants. All of those things work. So we came along. We now want to change the dynamic. And how are we changing the dynamic? We are changing that by providing for you a tool that will enable you to use all of your constitutionally granted and statutorily granted rights as a community, as a city in the state of Oregon. Let me ask you, if you don't mind taking us to the next screen. I apologize. Let me ask you folks a question. Do any cities in Oregon own a business?
Yes.
Any idea which ones?
What do you mean by?
Name a business.
All of them sell services.
All of them sell services, but there's a city in Oregon that owns a small railroad. There's a city in Oregon that owns a cannabis dispensary. There are cities in Oregon that own other for-profit businesses. Does the federal government own any for-profit businesses?
No, hypothetically. They don't always make a profit, but.
Unfortunately, true statement. But if you don't believe that businesses are owned by governments, let's talk about Lotto. Anybody ever heard of Lotto and lottery? The Oregon State has on their website, on the lottery website, they're talking and highlighting how in fiscal year 2021, $502 million were generated as profit for various different projects. And you want to know what's really interesting about that? Zero federal income tax is due on that revenue. Zero, none, nada. Because they are a government entity, they pay zero in income tax. I'm not going to comment on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, okay? It works. We appreciate the fact that it works. So I'm not here to champion or disparage anything that is being done. I'm here to share with you a little bit of background as to what we have created. For-profit businesses are acceptable to the federal government, to state governments, and to local governments. In the state of Minnesota, most of the small communities that have less than 10,000 citizens, the liquor store is owned by the city. Why? Because they can't get anybody else to come in and open a liquor store, and they're trying to serve their public. And in some cases, they're making a profit. And there, they're trying to expand them, build them, make them better. Here in Oregon, the OLCC makes money by what? Liquor distribution. The list goes on, okay? Why am I saying this? Because now we have an example. What is that example? Government-owned businesses, okay? Now, I'm not going to suggest to you that you should go out and buy a business tomorrow from, I'm sorry, ma'am, I didn't, my memory is horrible. What's your first name?
Whitney.
Whitney. You and your husband own businesses?
Yeah.
Okay? I'm not saying that we go out to Whitney and buy her business, to where the city now owns her business, runs the business, and locks her out because she's out of the loop. What I am saying is, let's use the enterprise program where the government owns a business in a way that we're using all of the tools that the city has. What are the tools? The income is tax-free. Absolutely zero income tax is paid on the business. She's having a difficulty switching them, so I'm not going to worry about that.
I can switch
You
them.
did. I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize. So, Meloria, what you see up there, that is a Latin term that we picked up. which basically means towards better things. So what we're shooting for is towards better things. I'll have you go ahead and go to the next screen, please. I apologize, I wasn't paying attention to you. It's my fault. Okay. So what we're,
I don't wanna interrupt you, but you are on a time frame, just so you know.
how much
Just
time
so
do
you
we
have,
have?
you have about no more than 7 minutes left.
Ooh,
Yep,
I will hurry.
so. A few slides left. Sorry, I was
If I
supposed to
start
keep you on
talking
a
too
prompt time
fast,
frame.
stop me, okay? So our proposal, and if you don't mind, I'm gonna use you as an example, you and your husband, okay? Our proposal is for this. Not as an Oregon business, but as an out-of-state business, and I'll tell you why. But let's assume that you're a business in Colorado, since that's where I came from, okay? Mr. Mayor, if your city is willing to purchase their business for zero money down, we want zero money down, okay? On what is called a conditional sales agreement, which is half like a financing agreement and half like a lease in terms of how it operates, okay? Now we have a conditional sales agreement where she and her husband are financing the business for the city, okay? The formulas I can get into later as to exactly how it works, but for the sake of discussion, just to speed things along, it's being purchased for enough money that the interest is going to pay you as much money as your net profit would have been. But there's one condition before we'll buy that business from you. You and your husband have to continue managing it. Okay? Now, where you weren't interested in selling the business before, but where now the city of Philomath purchases that business from you and converts your ordinary income from ordinary income to tax-free interest income. Now you pay no more federal income tax of any type associated with your business profits. Are you interested? Okay, you certainly would look at it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to continue managing it because you're in Colorado. City of Philomath doesn't have any presence in Colorado. City of Philomath doesn't have any political right to do anything in Colorado, but they do have their corporate right where they can extend to any part of the country, okay? So now you're going to continue running the business. So whereas today, the City of Philomath has purchased that business from you, tomorrow you're going to keep running it just like you did today. You're not going to sense any difference, okay? Now, in exchange for doing this within the IRS's codes, there has to be a benefit to a community. City of Philomath can't say, listen, we're going to do this for you, Whitney, because we like you. We think you're a wonderful family. You used to live in Philomath. By golly, we're going to bless you with zero federal income tax. Can't do that. The City of Philomath has to gain a benefit. That benefit we call the minimum net benefit. So now, if you and your husband, I don't presume to know what the numbers are, if you're making enough money that you have to pay $100,000 a year in taxes, you no longer have to pay $100,000 a year in federal income tax, but you're going to pay the City of Philomath $50,000 a year. Have you earned more money? Do you have more money in your pocket today than you did before the City of Philomath bought it? Yes or no?
Then, yeah, I would.
Does the City of Philomath have more money than it had before? You've won, City of Philomath has won. Here's what else is interesting. City of Philomath isn't going to the federal government for a grant. Federal government has won too. Everybody has won. Now, are there fail-safes? Yes. Do we have to be careful with that? Yes, because we have to be careful in how we structure the portfolio. But that is what we are proposing for you, is the opportunity for the city to acquire a portfolio of businesses from all over the country, not in the state of Oregon, because the city is now going to be able to benefit with a steady, stable cash flow every month that is coming from your business instead of federal income tax. Now, why do we say we want it to be from outside of the state of Oregon? Simple. You work with the state legislature. Do you think the state would like us taking money away from them?
They probably wouldn't notice, but
I'll take that under advisement. But our concern is that if it impacts state coffers, that the state legislators may choose to change some of the laws about what the city of Philomath can do. Now the program dies because the state has changed the rules. So let's not motivate the state to change the rules. The rules work. Let's make it work. The federal government wins, you win, you win. Everybody wins. Now, there are concerns and there are pitfalls that we have to be careful of. And those concerns and pitfalls become the purview of the city through an oversight body that the city creates, because it is up to you to decide what types of businesses you're willing to accept in that portfolio. Okay? There are things legal in the state of Nevada that I don't think you want to have anything to do with. Okay? Why? Because of reputation. It's called reputation risk. So in the state of Nevada, those businesses we're not going to touch with any cities other than the state of Nevada. Why can we do it in the state of Nevada when I just said we're not going to do it with the state? The state of Nevada has no state income tax, no legislators to worry about. Okay? Now, are there other businesses that you may or may not want to accept in your portfolio? That is not a decision for us to make on your behalf. If the city chooses to enter into a program like this, the city, with our advice, I mean, we'll be there as an advisory member to be able to give you some guidelines and give you some input and feedback. But the city is going to need to establish the parameters of what it wants to do, who it wants to do it with. The key points that I want to leave you with, because my time is short, is this. Number one, it is generating a cash flow from small businesses that are able to save money in federal income tax. That is helping your community, that is helping their community. It's not really impacting the federal government because of the fact that the federal government is also not going to be spending as much in the form of grants. Right now, the federal government has $4 trillion that it allows people to make money on tax-free. There are $4 trillion worth of municipal bonds in this country. What does that mean? That means large cities like Denver can build a stadium, do a municipal bond issue, have people who've got lots of money in their pockets put that money up and say, here, let me give that money to the city to build a stadium. Now the interest I'm going to make is tax-free. That is the law. That is there now. That is what's done today. You can't because you don't have the size. So what we have done, just like Uber, just like Airbnb, is we're saying, let's make it work for the smaller communities. Let's make it work for the business owners who don't have that much wealth. Let's make it work for everybody. That's our program.
Okay, a little cynical here. One, Uber and Airbnb have huge people involved laws that are going all over the place because it's not that manageable. There are bad actors on both sides of the transaction. The city owns the asset. So if it's out of state, that's less of a thing, but you have different laws everywhere. City's gonna have oversight, they're gonna have a fairly advanced business presence in city government to do oversight on something like this. And it seems like that could end up being a very high on several levels.
That is a very good question. Now, let me ask you this question, if I may. I don't like to always answer a question with a question, but I think you'll understand why I'm posing it the way I am, okay? If we, because our responsibility in building the portfolio, we bring a business owner to you who would like to be a part of this program. And that business owner, Three Margaritas, is a client of ours in Colorado. That business owner last year had to pay $740,000 in federal income taxes. He owns 28 restaurants, okay? We can look at his tax returns. We have his track record that he's been successful in business for the last 15 years. Actually, I think 20-some years, that he's been successful in business, okay? He's now willing to step into the program because he generates the tax savings. What oversight do you think can be provided that he hasn't already thought of because he's been operating a business that profitably for the last 20 years?
I have to interrupt, and I'm sorry, but Ben's gonna have to go. We gotta finish up our meeting.
I
It's
apologize.
almost 6:40. I'm sorry, we only had a limited amount of time. I think the mayor and Councilor McMorrin, are the counselors who would make more of a decision about this type of program and can talk with, the city manager after this meeting.
You have my card. You're
Yep.
welcome to give me a call. We can talk about that further if it's permissible. You're welcome to
Yep.
give me a call.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for joining us.
Okay, and I'm gonna make one quick statement. Everybody got the proposal packet from Chris, this morning. And you can review through that, mark it up, any questions you have, please pull those together. Also, he has the PowerPoint presentation, which is a higher level, just going over it, that you can get from him. So please feel free to get those, and we're always available as resources.
Thank you.
We'd love to really help the community.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so, has everyone had time to fill out their surveys? Can you write your names on it if it's okay with you? If you're not comfortable with it, I just think it's better if you do, so that we know exactly who, is looking at what. I just want to give a little bit of an opportunity if anyone else has anything that they want to share about the survey, anything. Hopefully you wrote something in if there's something additional, any.
Yeah, or something you're excited about, or opportunities or something.
I guess one thing was just, we talk a lot about like affordable housing and then like housing on city-owned lots, but I'd really like to see just sort of a discussion of housing and housing stock in general, not just like low-income housing or city-owned housing, but like what's the city's strategy for housing as a total concept?
With that too.
Look at that, on the same page.
Yeah, same.
Right.
Didn't we had a lands, survey a couple of years ago, a few years ago, that gives us all that information as far as what we have commercially and residentially and buildable and so forth.
I think the only thing that concerns me a little bit about that is, again, we're talking housing. There's gotta be the business development, as we said earlier.
Yeah.
We're gonna end up being a bedroom community for Corvallis, so,
Right.
I think the business.
I think we should talk about those things, not just about low-income housing
Right.
and everything, but the whole picture.
I mean, we can't generate money here in the city through tourism without a reason for them to be here,
Yeah.
to shop, to stop and.
Dave gave us one.
And,
Yeah.
right, well, Dave is an example of that.
More restaurants you can open.
Dave, there you go.
Literally all my friends.
Keep thinking Dizzy Hen open, so you gotta figure out the next one.
I think what Dave has done successfully is that he's brought the people from out of town together with the people in town. That is the secret.
I did think about, you have three business, you have people in town, you have the people driving through, and then you have the people who live, on the outskirts.
That's true.
You saw that with Gathering Together Farms,
Yeah.
that there was sort of a destination. And I've seen destination sites do well in other areas.
And I usually when I go, I get there in the morning and I'm standing outside the door when it opens. And I talk to the people that are out there, and more times than not, they're from out of town. Have I ever eaten here before? What's good? That type of thing. So it's really a good opportunity if you're willing to talk to people. They're willing to talk there, and it really, people have a good feeling about Philomath. This is a cute town. What's the housing like? That type of thing. I hear it all the time when I talk to people out there.
Well, if we're gonna be at least in part a bedroom community for Corvallis, we might as well get some of that money back by having them come here to spend their money.
It's inevitable.
Right, I mean, it's probably,
Point.
you can't do all the math, but I would think that it probably already is.
Yeah, it is.
OSU actually helps out a lot too, because we're getting students from OSU that are saying, I'm hearing we need to go to Philadelphia. And so, you know, we're getting that.
Like weirdly detailed questions about the road work. And then they said it's because they were standing on the corner outside Dizzy Hen, and I was like, there it is. All right.
Up at the road.
Yeah.
So yeah, those two elements, I mean, I feel, or three elements really, are just, you know, premier in making decisions.
What else are people thinking about?
Grocery stores.
Downtown Corvallis or Civitas.
Can't find a place to park.
We're gonna get it better, but it looks like we're losing some parking spaces.
They're losing it.
Like you,
Well,
yeah, but it'll be delineated.
yeah, and I know something we've talked about on the council too is like there is a lot of parking on side streets. Just trying to put signage for like you don't have to park on Main Street to eat at the Dizzy Hen or a block away. I know, but just reinforcing to folks that they can park down the block and they're parking there.
And we are doing a parking study right now through the Council of Governments. So we are doing a parking study right now. Hopefully not right now, because right now there's no parking.
No parking.
Bad time.
Question on that subject. I know that previously there was talk about studying about using some of those alleyways as parking that we have in town, you know? I'll move that question to someone else.
The ones downtown don't have a lot of space. I guess the between 12th and 13th, that's half of it, the west end is wide, but it's private property. I don't know where the lines are there.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm curious how much of this is informed by local business owners, and if that's something we could pull into the conversation as well when it comes to this stuff, if we can do a survey of some sort of what they need from us, something like that.
I am going to the chamber board meeting next Thursday, so I will ask that.
Yeah, and I know that in the parking study, some of these properties that have parking are private businesses, right? But they are often, closed like at times when other businesses are open. So, they technically don't have to let people park in those parking lots, but they could, or there could be a policy or something, an arrangement made between the city and
Agreements with other businesses in there,
Yeah, parking would include input.
I mean, I guess just in general, what this committee is working on too.
absolutely.
Seems appropriate.
Yep, for sure. And we did reach out and, they're aware of the presence of this.
We have business
committee, and
owners
we have
here.
business owners
Yeah,
here,
it's
so,
really important. Right.
we've talked to the chamber.
On the project here, Berkeley is being redeveloped in addition to the couples. Is that the only street that they're gonna do?
Yes.
It kind of looks like.
On this project, but we do have, plans to do 12th Street to 11th Street in the future,
Okay.
but it's not part of this particular project.
It'd be real tricky to design 12th Street. I'm right on the
Yeah.
right of way line on 12th Street, so.
Yep. Future project, but not that far in the future. The other things that we're excited about or thinking?
Anything you're really not excited about? Anything you really hate?
The thing that's kind of hanging out there in my mind is a grocery store.
It's, we actually just.
Renee topic.
Yeah, it's a recent topic. It's in our strategic plan for something that we'd like to explore more, and there's some surveys out there, but, there's a lot of interest. 2 people tell me that they're not interested, but that's about 2% of the people that you're heard.
I think it's been a conversation since the door closed.
Yeah.
But we have almost a doubled population since the last store closed, so I think it's warranted.
Dollar General has that big band of their offerings a lot.
Yeah.
Who's that?
It's still not adequate.
Yeah.
Works for some people, and some people want something different.
Yeah.
We all have our priorities.
Go to Newport and talk JC Market into
Yeah, I think that's been a conversation before.
about that size is.
And it's now, Franklin's? Is that right? Franklin's store
I know what you mean.
bottom out.
Which kind of brings up, like, I have an interest in, you know, businesses that serve our local economies rather than Dollar Generals, where money leaves town.
Exactly.
Ways to keep our economy local.
There's a lot of interest in that. It just requires the right business owner with the right mindset and vision to make it happen. But location is something also that is something, like, we don't have a spot right now that's available that is zoned, that's large enough and is zoned for commercial for grocery. That doesn't mean we can't rezone, and we are working on our rezoning plan, but,
Yeah, it's like expensive business, refrigeration, perishable.
Yeah, it's not a building one, like, pretty daunting.
But I completely agree with you. You know, I always think it's kind of silly that, like, we have some within a 3 mile radius, and then I go buy a tomato from California.
Right.
absolutely, yeah.
I think it'd be great to.
When I lived in Fairbanks, Alaska, which is a food desert, but they, actually, the community came together and raised a lot of funds and then built a food co-op, a community-owned food co-op, which is about the size of Dollar General, but just focused on groceries locally produced, as much locally produced as they could.
Any information on, Interfor?
I don't have any updates to you.
No, we haven't had any updates.
You know, they're planning to close, last I heard, planning to close their doors in mid-May or end of May. But, there were some job fairs, that we attended, but no updates. I noticed that 2 weeks after they announced the closing, that Interfor was one of the, businesses that were suing the federal government over their forestry policy. So in some ways, I was starting to wonder if it might be a political statement.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, really appreciate y'all being here. Yeah, this is a really good first start. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Sandy, for coming and chatting with us. Really, thanks to all the volunteers and your time. I know that time is something we all have short on, so really, really appreciate your energy and mind space. Thank you.
Thank you.